In a new direction for the series, Romero goes reality TV with this immediate sequel to 2005's Land of the Dead. It's about an aspiring filmmaker, Jason Creed, whose student film gets broken up due to a zombie invasion, and decides to continue rolling on the action while it unfolds. His fellow classmates follow him as they travel the country, with their drunken professor along for the ride. Along the way, they get robbed by a group of military drifters, and eventually they make it to some rich guy's house where they make their final stand against the zombies. It's an entertaining flick and an interesting experiment for Romero, as the whole film is shot through the perspective of Jason's shaky camera. It feels very much like watching someone play a first-person shooter, with a loosely written script that feels shamefully reminiscent of the Blair Witch Project. Even in 2007, this had been done to death, with films like Blair Witch and Open Water. The following year, we had Cloverfield to look forward to. So while the concept wasn't anything new, seeing it done as a zombie movie was different. At this point, the story's pretty routine. There's a lot of chaos, and it follows the format of a disaster movie more than it does any of the past Romero Dead films. On that note, it's not bad, but it's also not that memorable. This was the first one I got to see in theaters, and I remember thinking even then that while it was okay, the series had finally run its course. The zombies were back to being mindless flesh eaters, throwing away pretty much everything we had learned from the last 4 movies, with the exception of shooting them in the head being the only method of putting one down. There are some twisted scares, but really nothing that stands out. It relies more on shocking us with clever uses of the camera and less on dealing out suspense. I have to say, this was the first Romero film where the makeup didn't really impress me. The documentary style lends itself to some of that, but there's also a sense that Romero was holding back. Was it a sign of his age? After all, he directed the first film way back in the late 60s, so he's got to be up there. It's hard to comment on because while it's heavy in shock value, it's light on sustenance. The plot feels generic, the characters as usual are pretty forgettable, aside from the professor, who's hilarious.
Andrew Maxwell, emeritus. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. And I'm not with anybody.
And it feels like just about any other decent zombie movie, lacking that George A. Romero stamp of approval. Now you might think I dislike the movie, and that's not the case, as it's still pretty entertaining, but everything about it, from the overuse of the shaky camera to the lack of impressive makeup, makes it feel as if it's taking a step back rather than a step forward. Shouldn't we by now be better at defending ourselves from this thing? We're seeing the characters make the same mistakes and the same choices they've been making from day one. That being said, as entertaining as it is, it's one of the weaker entries. It's interesting that the gap between Land of the Dead and Diary of the Dead was the shortest ever between Romero films, and the result isn't as impressive as before.
Hurry. Why? Oh, shit!
Lord.
They must have been following us.
Oh, my Lord.
3 of them. Tony, how many bullets you got left?
Where did he go?
Holy Lord.
Oh, Jesus! Christ. Jesus Christ.
I thought the Amish were friendly folk.